Well, good morning, Jasper, and thank you for this opportunity to conduct an interview with you and your group at Valpal. I'm going to give the audience a brief overview of Vior from a corporate point of view to begin here. So I just will caution everybody there will be some forward-looking statements in our presentation. So just briefly about Vior and our corporate profile, we're modeled as somewhat of a hybrid junior explorer. By that, we mean we do have some 100% owned projects that we are advancing on our own with our own capital. And we do have several other projects where we're partnered with other companies where they're deploying their own money to advance the project. In some cases, we're the operator. In other cases, they are the operator. But we do have a vested interest in the advancement of these projects. We do participate in their upside as well, which is a bit of a project generator model, but I wouldn't consider us a project generator per se. So our strategy is pretty simple. Provide our shareholders with exposure to high potential gold and critical mineral discoveries. Clearly, the focus of this presentation and where we're deploying the bulk of our capital and human resources is at our flagship Belleterre Gold project in Quebec. We believe that this is by far the single best driver for value creation within our portfolio over the next 12 to 24 months. All of our projects are in the safe jurisdiction of Quebec. I think most of your viewers will probably recognize Quebec as one of the top Fraser Institute jurisdictions in terms of rankings. I don't have the exact number, but I think it was ranked 5th in the 2023 survey. We have some strong financial and technical partners. As you'll see a little further along in the presentation, Osisko Mining, which is now the subject of a takeover by Gold Fields, has been a wonderful strategic partner of ours, both from a financial and a technical point of view. Some of these Quebec-based institutions have been great financial supporters of ours, and SOQUEM is both a financial and a technical partner of ours on one of our key projects within the portfolio. Expertise, we've got a very experienced management and technical team, collectively 100 plus years experience. I'll go over some of the individuals in a subsequent slide. Diversification, we do have a diversified portfolio of exploration projects with multi-mineral potential. A little bit about people. Obviously, people are key to the success of any organization. Our chairman, Claude Saint-Jacques, ironically, is the founder of the company back in 1984. He's been around since then, 40 years. He's gone through various renditions of the company, had successes in several of the bull markets. He was also the founder of the very successful Virginia gold mines, run by Andre Gomo, subsequently sold to Goldcorp in the early 2000s, and the spin-out entity, which was Virginia Royalties, was subsequently sold to Osisko Royalties back about 10 years ago or so. My background is in the investment business. I think you'll want to know a little bit more about me in the interview, so I won't delve too much into my background here. We do have two other individuals, Eric Desaulniers, Charles Vital, who one is the CEO and founder of the very successful Nouveau Monde Graphite. The other individual, Charles, is the CFO. Excellent financial experience. He's president of our audit committee. Most recently, we have Pascal Simard. He's the VPX of Osisko Mining. He joined our board in December of 2023. He's been working with me very closely the last couple of months and has been instrumental in our ongoing discussions and some negotiations with our First Nation partners. Very lean management structure. It's myself right now and our CFO for hire. This will likely be beefed up as we move along in the exploration process at Belleterre. Our technical team is key here. We have 3 highly tenured geos on staff, beginning with Ben Cleland. He's our senior exploration manager and in charge of our Belleterre gold project. Christian Blanchet, he's our operations manager. He's active on the ground at Belleterre. Really a workhorse, 20 plus years experience. He's worked for majors like Rio Tinto as well as juniors, but he's been with us approaching 10 years now. And then Mathieu Gay, he's our manager of geology. He's our head scientific. He's really in charge of a couple of our partnerships, notably our Skyfall nickel, cobalt, copper, gold project that we have partnered with SOQUEM. And he continues to be actively involved in project generation at the same time. And then Mark Fedosiewich is our former VPX. He's a technical advisor. We lean on him from time to time to keep us on the straight and narrow. A little bit by the numbers. I know you're going to ask me some questions a little further on, Jasper, but just quickly, and then we can expand upon some of these items in the interview. But our working capital position as of the end of September is about $21 million. Our share count's just under 234 million. Market cap 42 million roughly as of a couple days ago. Major shareholders include Osisko Mining at 22.3% undiluted and at about 28.2% partially diluted. Quebec institutional funds own about 12.5% collectively. Scotia 1832, which is the Dundee Precious Metal Funds, own about 8.6% undiluted. Management and board about 7%. Close strategic holders would encompass about 15 high net worth individuals that I have positioned in the stock over the past 4 years or so. They would collectively own about 13% of the company. What's not indicated on there, excuse me, in the last financing, we brought in a number of other institutions, family offices as shareholders. They would collectively probably own, I would say, about 20% or more of the company now. Just quickly about asset allocation, diversification. Clearly, our focus is on precious metals, and Belleterre gold would be the focus of that at the moment. We do have exposure to some other critical and strategic metals, but we go through a rigorous project generation criteria. You will see that in how we developed our Belleterre gold project, going on 4 years now. As any junior, we have, limitations with our capital and human resources. We cannot be all things to all people. So clearly at the moment, our focus is on advancing our 60,000 meter drill program at Belleterre, whilst, on the side, managing a couple of our other projects, both as operator and as silent partners. Belleterre gold, clearly the focus. Skyfall, we are advancing with our partner SOQUEM. It's a combination nickel, copper, cobalt, zinc, and gold project, a little bit more greenfield in nature. Other projects within our portfolio would be our Musso gold project. We've recently optioned to Harvest Gold, a small junior out of Vancouver. Our Foothills phosphate and titanium project that we have optioned to Neo Bay Metals in Quebec. We do have another couple gold projects, notably our Ligneris Gold and our Vezinoyard project, which are on the shelf right now, but we do believe we will find a partner or buyer for these very interesting gold projects in the upcoming bull market. We do have a portfolio of juniors within our working capital position of our balance sheet. They include companies like Ridgeline Minerals, our holdings in Neo Bay Metals, holdings in Harvest Gold, and a small lithium company as well. Just situationally, for people who are not that familiar with Quebec, this is a situational map in Quebec where our projects are located. Really, none of them are up north in the James Bay area. We typically stay within the Abitibi, Timiskaming Greenstone belts. So Belleterre, as you can see, is situated just south of Rouyn-Noranda and Val d'Or. Ligneris, Pheasant Royale, Muscle, Skyfall, all would fall within that Abitibi belt. Really, some of them are really close to the border of James Bay, however. And then we have our Foothills project, which is situated northeast of Quebec City. And further up the coast, the St. Lawrence coast, would be a Big Island titanium project, which we are looking for a partner on right now. So that would be an overview of what we have in Quebec right now, Jasper. I'm not going to delve in. Clearly the focus of the presentation is on our Belleterre gold project. We believe it's the next potential major gold discovery in Quebec. But I think you've had an interview with our head senior exploration manager, Ben, earlier on in the week, who expanded on Belleterre in detail. So I'm open to questions from you at this point.
Could you tell us about yourself and your career?
Certainly. So I'm not a career-long resource executive. My background is financial in nature. I started off as a commodities broker in 1984, built a very successful investment management practice over the next 30 years, sold it to my junior partner in 2015, took a couple years off to run my own money. I had always been very active in the junior exploration space and the mining space over various bull markets, cycles, the last 40 years. Some of my clients were mining executives, and just by happenstance, I was approached by a board member at Vior back in late 2017, and was asked to potentially take on the challenge of CEO, build a company with a flagship project, and reinvigorate it with the cash that it had on its balance sheet at the time. So I took on the challenge beginning late 2017. Fast forward almost 7 years now, and here we are with a different rendition of Vior. I think with an excellent flagship project, and some really good partners to advance some of our other projects within a portfolio.
What would you consider to be your greatest achievements so far?
From a business point of view, I would say building a very successful investment management practice and then selling it. And then I would also say taking on the challenge here at Vior and working hard to turn it into a different type of explorer, where the odds are clearly stacked against you from a percentage point of view. But I think we are at a point in our company life cycle right now where we have a potential for some really great success here.
How many shares do you hold of Vior, and how important is that position to your personal net worth?
Yeah, so my current holdings, Jasper, are a little over 10 million shares. They've all been purchased either in the market or via private placements the last 7 years. It's important to me. Is it a game changer for future retirement? No. But of more importance, I positioned a lot of business associates, a few family members, some friends within the company with some significant holdings. I treat that as almost like my own money. I look at the risk-reward profile at all times within our corporate structure to give us the best shot for success going forward. So, it's important, really important to me. And one of the reasons we are where we are today for the dilution that we undertook a few months ago to increase our probability for success within the company.
Could you explain, so how have you give us some insights into your process of how you have selected the technical advisors and other management members or team members really at the Vior?
Sure. So if for those who aren't aware, Vior has had a pedigree of success. It's been an incubator technical expertise within the Quebec ecosystem for the last 40 years. As an example, a gentleman by the name of André Gaumont, Mathieu Savard, Jacques Bonneau, Jean-Marc Cleland, Marco Gagnon. These are all well-known mining executives within Quebec. They've all had at least an initial formation of some sort at Vior in past renditions. So I was very fortunate when I came on in 2017. We had two very experienced geos on staff that I was able to keep on, help me build Vior to where it is today. We've leveraged that by bringing in some other really key technical people on our staff. Those would include Ben Cleland, who's now our head of exploration at Belleterre, and Mathieu Gay, who's our head scientific. He was formerly with Dundee Gold and several other junior and more advanced companies. Two highly experienced individuals, and they're helping drive this success that we're looking at Vior right now.
So Vior has been a project incubator or project generator or has at least had that type of model. But since you took over in 2017, could you walk us through what has been done and how the company got to where it is today?
Sure. So I was mandated beginning late 2017 to find a flagship project. Ideally in the precious metal space, that's where I want to be. That was part of our business plan. We attempted a few mergers the first couple of years unsuccessfully for technical reasons. We pulled a plug at the last minute on a couple. Those took up a large portion of the first couple of years. One of the reasons we own Ridgeline Mineral shares is because we were having difficulty finding a good project to put in the company. And we had cash in our treasury. They needed cash. So we were able to secure a 9.9% position in Ridgeline at its very early private company stage. We still own all our shares today, and hopefully it'll form a meaningful part of our treasury at some future point. But really, the current Vior goes back about 4 years when Laurent Eustache, our former executive VP, came on board. He and I identified Belleterre as having excellent potential, and we look to begin the consolidation of this a significant land package and the lion's share of the Belleterre Greenstone belt that had been underexplored for the past 60 years. And really, it had never been explored cohesively as one true land package. So that's really the genesis of Belleterre Gold, going back 4 years. And we are where we are today after really half a year of consolidation and 3.5 years of heavy lifting geologically on the ground through compilation, multiple field programs, new lithostructural model, and the significant drill targeting that we undertook this past year.
How does the capital structure look like with the shares outstanding, options, warrants, and etc.?
Sure. So as we stand today, Jasper, we've got about 234 million shares outstanding, about 72 million warrants, almost all of them at 21 cents exercise price. Options outstanding would amount to a little under 7.5 million only. We haven't been generous enough on our option allocation. Hopefully we'll be able to allocate a few more options later on in the year. So our working capital position, as I mentioned earlier, is about $21 million. We are fully funded for this 60,000 meter drill program that we're undertaking at Belleterre over the next 9 months. And we are very confident we will have a good degree of success there.
So just the warrants at 21 cents, when are they expiring?
So they were all issued late March of this year and mid-April of this year. They were 2-year warrants. So you're looking at roughly another year and a half to go on them.
Thank you. And if we exclude exploration expenditures, what's the quarterly G&A burn rate?
So right now we're looking at about 300,000 a quarter. That includes some ramp up in marketing, market awareness, investor relations activities that we've recently begun. It'll probably move up to 350,000 a quarter as we're ramping up some additional marketing, investor relation activities here over this coming quarter.
And how much do you expect the 60,000 meter program to cost all in?
Yeah, so we budgeted $190 a meter all in with a 12% contingency allocation. So we're targeting about 11.5 million for the 60,000 meters, but it could come in a little bit less depending on our productivity.
You raised earlier this year 21.8 million Canadian of gross proceeds, so resulting in a dilution slightly over 100%. I mean, that first I have to say I'm impressed that there was especially that there was the appetite for it. It's a quite large financing for any junior. It's a large financing for any junior. But could you give us the rationale? Why raise this much now, and how much of the proceeds will go to Belleterre?
Sure. So this whole process started late last year when I met with Osisko Mining. We both agreed. They had recently visited the project November of last year. We had already identified north of 60,000 meters of potential drill targets. We agreed that to have a higher probability for success, we needed to initiate a significant drill program because of all the multiple targets that we had. Even though the markets were challenging early this year, we began the process of looking to raise $20 million on a roughly 14 million market cap company. We were fortunate to have Osisko Mining with a lead order. They opened up their network to us as well, made a number of introductions to investment bankers, and we began the process in February. Very challenging markets, however. Very few people knew much about Vior. However, we kept moving forward with a number of presentations, dozens and dozens of them, in fact. We finally gained traction right around just before PDAC of this past year, and found a couple investment bankers who were really willing to sink their teeth into the financing. They believed in the project and the people, and believed they could cross the finish line with us on it. So we're very pleased to have had the success of these bankers and the investors who signed on as well.
Great. Well, then now you're fully capitalized. So could you remind me, how long have you had Belleterre in your portfolio?
Yeah, Belleterre, the whole process of Belleterre began in the fall of 2020 when we identified it and began the consolidation. We secured the two main pieces, which is the old Belleterre gold mine and a significant brownfield piece beside it, which were the old JAG resource properties. We secured an option to purchase 100% of the old Belleterre gold mine, and we secured an option agreement to option up to 100% of the JAG properties. We then went to Osisko Mining, who owned the next significant piece, and asked if we could option their piece. At the time, tongue-in-cheek, they were looking at doing the exact same thing as we were. And that's sort of how the genesis of our partnership with Osisko Mining came about. They were looking at consolidating Belleterre as a future project within their pipeline. And when they heard that we had secured the two main pieces, they said, you know what, Vior can probably do it cheaper than us. Vior, can do all the heavy lifting for us, which is really what we've done over the past 3.5 years. They knew our technical people. They knew me. They believed we had the capability to undertake such an endeavor. And that's how they began their financial investment in us and how the consolidation happened. So, it was a combination of about 10 different deals, include map staking, a number of claims, small acquisitions from individual stakers and landowners in the area, and some bigger pieces that we currently own.
What's the size of the land package?
Yeah, so the Belleterre Gold Project is a subset of a larger Belleterre holding that we have. So the actual Belleterre project in its entirety, which includes some critical minerals potential, would be about 670 square kilometers, encompassing about 1,135 claims. But the actual gold project in and of itself is about 350 square kilometers, encompassing about 635 claims. Still very significant district scale. It's truly a mining camp with about 37 kilometers of strike line.
Do you now hold 100% of the project, or do you still have some earnings?
Yeah, so there's still a few earnings. We own the Belleterre, the old Belleterre gold mine, 100%. The JAG properties we are earning in for 100%. We are on track, especially with the drill program we're undertaking at the moment. Really, the only piece within our current Belleterre Gold project, which we will not own 100% of after earn-in, would be the Blondeau de Guillet property that is owned by Osisko Mining. We have potential to earn in up to 75% of it. We should be there sometime next year.
What royalties are there on Belleterre?
On the royalty side, it's a mix of different things. There are some pieces of it with no royalties and other pieces with typically 1% to 2% royalties, some of them with buyback provisions. As you probably are aware, because of Osisko's financial backing and help in the financing we undertook earlier on this year, they do have an option to purchase a future royalty on the Belleterre Gold project of 2%, subject to a 3% cap on any existing royalties. And they have a back-end provision which allows them to buy back some of the existing royalties if they so choose. So it's nothing onerous. We capped it such that there wouldn't be any more than 3% royalty on any one particular piece. The actual old Belleterre gold mine, it's capped at 2% because there were no existing royalties on it to begin with.
There's a past producing, the Belleterre gold mine produced, I think, close to 800,000 ounces, high grade, almost 11 grams per ton of gold. Why and when was it shut down?
Yeah, so the old Belleterre gold mine produced from the late 30s to the late 50s. It was old school mining. They were typically following a high grade vein, targeting 1 to 3 ounce material. Gold at the time when it closed was about $32 an ounce. It was actually more expensive at that time to drill deep than to sink a shaft. So at the end of the mine life, the last several years, they just followed a high-grade chute where they had already sunk a shaft, followed it to a point where it was no longer economical necessarily. There was wage pressures. The government of Canada and the province were subsidizing mining activities at that time. A lot of focus went a little further north in the Abitibi, both in Quebec and Ontario, where some more prolific mines were being discovered. But it was mostly for economic reasons and mining methods that were just not economic at the time.
Could you give us an overview of the existing infrastructure at Belleterre? Power, water, roads?
So in terms of the old infrastructure that was left by the old Belleterre gold mine, there's really nothing of worth. But there is, in the region, there's an extensive road system due to extensive logging in the area. so it's very accessible year round. We have a power line going right through our property, so should we have success, we'll have access to very easy and cheap power in the area. We are just south of the true mining hub of Quebec, namely Rouyn-Noranda and Val-d'Or. So we've got access to great experienced manpower and labor. No shortage of drilling companies that wanted to bid on our drilling contract. We have lodging. We have the town of Belleterre is a town of about 250, 300 people. It was built because of the old Belleterre gold mine back in the 30s and 40s. They would love nothing else than to see a reinvigoration of mining in the area and a new gold mine. So there is some lodging. We have a core shack lodging for about 16 people, literally about 3 kilometers from the old Belleterre gold mine. So it's very efficient. For a small little junior explorer, we have sufficient infrastructure at Belleterre and lots of infrastructure nearby to allow us to progress and advance this project.
Thank you for being here today, Ben.
Thanks for having me, Jasper.
Could you tell us about yourself and your career?
Yeah, I'm a geologist for Vior. I've been a geologist for over 16 years now. I've worked across most of Canada, from the Yukon, Northern Ontario, and now working in Quebec. Graduated from Carleton University several years back, and focused most of my career on exploration, different commodities ranging from base metals to precious. Most of my career in the past, say 10 years, have been in the gold industry. I've worked up in Northern Ontario at the Hard Rock deposit, the Greenstone gold mine that is there now. I was with Premier Gold back when they first acquired the property in the early 2000s, and over several years transitioned from a core logging geologist to the manager of geology for Greenstone gold mines, and took that project in through into the first resource calculations and into the pre-development. When at the time they had merged with Centerra, but obviously now it's an Equinox project, or an Equinox operating mine. So that's where I cut my teeth on most of my experience with exploration, working with Premier Gold and the subsequent companies, giving an opportunity to really see that whole process from grassroots to pre-development.
Perfect. And is it fair to say that working on the Hard Rock, or now the Greenstone project, is the at least exploration achievement that you're most proud of? Or
yeah, I would say at this point it's exciting with Vior because the opportunity seems to have presented itself once again to do a large-scale exploration company with a junior explorer in an area of past production. Very similar timelines, very similar storyline. In Hard Rock up in Geraldton, Ontario, that I'm seeing now in the Belleterre, Quebec location. So I'm hoping we can reproduce something similar. I can't make any assumptions it'll be of the same scale at this point, but obviously that deposit in Northern Ontario is a wonderful one, and we're just at the beginning of the exploration program here for the Belleterre project. So specifically for the Belleterre project, what we're looking at here is not only just an exploration program around a historic mine site, but a district scale opportunity. I can explain that in more detail in the next slide. A bit of the backstory on Vior. The company's been around since 1984. It's had several projects and successes through Quebec. Currently, as I mentioned, the flagship project is the Belleterre project, located around the town of Belleterre, and just south of the community of Winnoway. In the Belleterre historic mine, there was produced just shy of 800,000 ounces of gold at 10.7 grams per ton. This was an older mine that operated between the 30s and the late 50s, and seen limited exploration since its closure time in the 60s. Very similar, as I mentioned, story to the hard rock deposit in Northern Ontario. Over the past half century, we've seen a few companies come in and do some smaller drill programs and exploration programs, but no one's ever put together the entire district and the entire region and reinterpreted the geological environment and put some context to the distribution of gold mineralization within this entire area. And so what we've seen through our compilation of this, we know it's a high-grade system, and we know that it's been untested at depth, and we can see that there's a potential for an extensive strike length of multiple deposits across the gold project area. We are currently have commenced our 60,000 meter drill program. We've started the program in and around the Belleterre mine site itself, and I'll get into a bit of detail of where we focus that drilling at this time.
Not to say that we have to zoom out, but if you could explain sort of the geologic setting in which the Belleterre project sits in, and is it on any sort of larger greenstone belt, or if you could add?
Yeah, absolutely. So scale-wise, let's start location-wise. We sit south of the Abitibi Greenstone belt, the prolific gold-producing district in Quebec. We are in a separate greenstone belt. It's the Belletaire's greenstone belt. We have about 90% of that entire belt in our claim package at this point. We can see it on this slide here in the background of the green location. The mine site itself sits within the Belleterre, or in the brownfield area, and in the Belleterre mine trend here. But the region it's like many Archean, typical Archean greenstone belts. We've got a series of volcanic bands of mafic volcanics that have been thrusted in along a thrust system. We've got a regional fold that folds in and around that the Belleterre mine system sits upon. We've got some more detailed geology maps as we go further in. And what we've been able to identify in the past couple of years of our exploration, the compilation and consolidation of the land, are some district-sized fault systems, shear systems, deformation zones, which could be acting as those major hydrothermal plumbing systems which you need to move and deposit the gold within these environments. Age-wise, we're looking at a very similar age of rocks as we see up in the Abitibi. And our more of our mineralization environment, at least at the surface, where most of the work has been done, does seem to be a vein-hosted, shear-hosted style of gold mineralization. But through our work, we've actually identified a couple different styles of mineralization into volcanogenic massive sulfides, ultramafic sequences down to the south, and the potential for more of a intrusive style alteration-hosted gold mineralization in some of our quartz belts of our porphyries. So
and
one of the things that go ahead.
Sorry to once again interrupt you, but so greenstone belts, they have structures, and they're usually quite prospective for gold or host of gold. What defines a greenstone deposit or belt?
Well, greenstone deposit, more so a greenstone belt. The reason we call it a greenstone belt is more so because the rocks tend to be green. The style of the type of geology we have in these are most likely associated with volcanics. And so those volcanics range from actual extrusive lavas, which were produced in the Archean. They may have formed at the base of, or at a rift center within an ancient ocean, or they may have actually flowed up on the surface as lavas you would see. And the other style is then more of an intrusive volcanic, and these take the shape of, say, a gabbro. And then you can get more into a felsic environment of lithologies as well, so andesites and other types of volcanics. They do tend to mostly be green, and a lot of these systems have undergone an alteration process or a metamorphic process, which brings in or converts some of the original minerals to a chlorite, and that chlorite once again is green. So this is where we get that name of greenstone belt from. The belt form is just because of how it's been how they tend to be formed in these long attenuated systems. And then the most critical, we see greenstone belts all over the place in any of these Archean systems. What makes them really prospective for gold is when you start to include and introduce these major faults or deformation zones. These are what allow the fluids, these hydrothermal fluids, which have dissolved the gold over huge areas, and they can bring that fluid into an area. And it's our job as geologists to find those traps that pull the gold out of those hydrothermal fluids and create these deposits. So as you can see from the slide here, we do have a large land package of the Belleterre gold. We do have claims outside of the Belleterre gold. These are more in a critical mineral scope at this point, with some ongoing field exploration. It's very greenfield in this area. We are looking at potentially extending this Greenstone belt, which through our mapping we've seen has extended out into the eastern portion of our claim. So we may see some growth to the Belleterre gold component as we move further to the east side of that claim block. Inside the claim block, as we've now sort of gone through all of our interpretations, regional prospecting, regional mapping, high resolution magnetic surveys, we've done all the back end work required to truly interpret and model this geological environment. We've now honed into the Belleterre brownfield region, and this is where our 60,000 meters of drilling are taking place. 75% of those meters will go into the Belleterre mine trend, so focused in around the historic mine site, and a distribution of high-grade gold systems along the surface, and we'll be testing them at depth to see the continuity of that mineralization as we move from east to west. Outside of the mine trend, we've identified four other targets, major targets that range from more of a bulk tonnage, low-grade style mineralization around a felsic intrusive body, an ultramafic sequence down to the south, some other high-grade shear-hosted gold systems. The VMS mineralization is located just in the north portion here, and then a major deformation myelinite zone. So these are very intensely sheared regions, and I'll get into a bit more detail on those on a few of the other slides. So zooming into the brownfield area, we have the historic Belleterre mine sitting off on the eastern edge of the Belleterre mine trend. This is where we have our highest density of drilling, as this is where we have the highest amount of information so far, because we've been able to reconstruct the historic mine digitally and put in all of the plan maps and the geology maps, which were done so diligently by the geologists back in the 30s through the 50s. And we're able to reconstruct and interpret from that data a little bit more easy than they could back then. Just do one part to the understanding of these gold systems, and two, with the digital computing capacity that we have with a lot of our softwares that allow us to really extrapolate data more thoroughly than they may have been able to back then. So a lot of our drilling will take place, we'll be starting with more of a shallow drilling in close to the mine site itself, looking for that envelope around the historic workings. It's an area that we can see that there was some exploration drilling done from underground in the past. We see that there are grades that still exist out in the hanging wall and the footwall. So this first round is going to be looking at assessing that, and then following that system as this sheet style vein plunges off to the north from this location. So starting in these drill hole here, and then moving in this grid system back to the north. Highest priority for us at this point, as it has the best potential, mainly because it has the most information. As we learn more from these drill holes, this will be applied across the Belleterre trend itself, and most likely our next follow-up targets after drilling, after we've commenced drilling well here, will be into the Obel system, which is the drill holes in this region. At this point, we started with 2 drills. They are shallow holes. It's great rock to be drilling, high RQD. They're pushing a really good production at this point. They're keeping our geologists very busy. And and hopefully we can get one of those drills shifted off of the Belleterre mine at some point, or the addition of a third drill, which will allow us to start going after some of the other targets. So within the Belleterre trend, what we do see here, and I'll get to it on another slide, but it's a 6 kilometer strike length across here, where we've had historically, we've got the Belleterre mine, we've got the Obel deposit, which was a historic showing, the Conway and the Packing also historic showings, but we see a continuity of drilling, of gold, high-grade gold systems across this entire trend. So this is areas where we see vein structures over several hundred meters that are crossing in length, not crossing in this shear zone that kind of comes through here. So we've got quite a few targets in through this area. And one thing that I can say is that this has never been tested at depth. Most of the drilling in this area has only gone down to about 250 meters. We know that these style of mineralization, or these style of deposits in our Key and Greenstone belts, they can go multiple kilometers at depth. So we really have only scratched the surface on what lies beneath here, and the potential that the Belleterre brownfield alone, but the Belleterre district can produce.
So firstly, could you explain what the work has been done, previous work has been done on the Belleterre project? Drilling, also type of drilling, what geochem and geophysics have you done, etc.?
Yeah, so we've really taken a very academic look at this, and a very systematic approach starting in 2020, 2021. We have blanketed the region with prospecting, with samples, taking samples, and so we've got a completely revitalized surface map over 2,500 sample or data points, and just over 1,000 assays have been sent in for reinterpretation of the lithostructural model. We've taken that data and integrated that into our regional high-resolution magnetic survey. And then we've also worked with a few of the best consultants in the province to put together some targeting metrics, and the combination of utilizing all of the data that we've been able to put together for some targeting, and then also taking that and turning it into a three-dimensional model, looking at these major corridors that provide the conduits for the mineralization. Following that, we've intensified our exploration and really focused into a few key areas within the Belleterre mine, the Belleterre brownfield area, again, because it's where we have the most information. And we've executed a short drill program, 2021-22, which main goal on that was to confirm the mineralization has extension at depth. Sometimes in these areas, unfortunately, there can be a regional fault that cuts mineralization or truncates that mineralization at a certain level, and we wanted to confirm before going further that that's not the case. That underneath the Obel system and at the western end of the Belleterre system, we drilled about 500 meters below these historic known deposits and systems, and we actually intersected mineralization at depth. So that gave us the confidence to know mineralization is not truncated. There is not only lateral extension of the mineralization, there's also vertical. So at that point, we knew we needed to really sink into understanding the geology a lot more before pushing on another big drill program. So we spent a year and a half doing surface mapping, outcrop stripping, and trenching, channel sample trenching across the brownfield area, which gave us even more insight to the detailed geology and the geometry of the vein systems, which has opened our eyes to a few really key components within the Belleterre, or the orientation of the mineralization. So one sort of aha moment we had over the past year and a half was actually at the Belleterre 9 vein. It was a historic vein that was just known of at the surface. But we did a stripping program on top of it and moved the overburden, and were able to map that. And as we stood to look at the outcrop that had this big mound of rock, we could actually see the plunging vein plunging off to the north, and really flattening out and doing a few little steps, which gave us a better understanding of how the vein at the Belleterre mine system is working. When you can see these veins on surface, you can see them in profile, in person, it really gives you a better understanding of the geometry. And we saw that the major plunge of this system was actually plunging back to the east. So this gave us the ability to reinterpret some of the data along the Belleterre mine, and actually we've been able to identify through the historic data high-grade hinge lines, folds within the vein system that are these fold hinges plunging off to the east. So part of the design of our drill program is delineating and following up those hinge lines plunging off to the east. Prior to that, it appeared that a lot of the exploration had looked at western plunging systems, and unfortunately wasn't producing much success. But when we were able to actually excavate and look at those structures in situ, we could see that they're actually plunging in the opposite direction. So next slide I can go into and get into more detail will be on the Belleterre mine trend itself. This is a cross section. So we've got the plan view looking at the top here with the Belleterre mine looking straight down. This was the sort of workings we see. The majority of the ounces taken from the Belleterre mine came from this area here, which was the historic 12 vein. But as we see it coming across at that mine trend, we've got the Conway deposit. These are, so on the Belleterre side, this is what had been removed. This is what the resources that were removed. Whereas over on the Obel, the Conway, and the Packing, these are more of the general mineralization areas that we have from historic drilling and from surface mapping and things like that. So when we look at this area, again, we're looking at about a 6 kilometer strike length from side to side. We see a similar geometry. We see a similar sort of, there's a fold that kind of comes through here, and high grade gold distribution all sort of through this area. Limited exploration just due to the topography and the landform that we have through this area, but we do have some interesting drilling that's coming, drill targets that are in through this area up here. As we go to the southern, or the bottom half of this image, this is the long section cutting through right in the middle with the Belleterre mine on the right hand side, and the Obel, Conway, and Paquet cutting through here. So as I said, one of our first processes was to confirm mineralization extending down at depth. So we were able to intersect over about 9 meters of mineralization at depth. I think if I could say, with what we've been able to hone now, I think we can we're even more confident in how we can target the system at depth, which is sort of it's all part of the 60,000 meters of drilling, but it'll follow up the initiation of our drilling over at the Belleterre mine site. So we're looking at the Belleterre mine to drill around the 12 vein, which is this main area here that we have, and then extending that down at depth. This area through the lower portion has seen almost no exploration, even during the historic mine time.
Where are the 2 rigs currently at?
2 rigs currently are sitting right here. So the number 3 shaft, which is the historic shaft, is this little, where my dot is here. And we're just drilling on one side over here with one drill, and the second drill is just moved over here. So again, we're looking at spacing. The drill spacing at this point is 100 meter spacing, which is 120 meter spacing, which is close spacing, but because of the information that we have from the historic work, it gives us a lot of confidence to be able to target. And these first drill holes are certainly intersecting what we were anticipating to see.
They're drilling shallow holes. How deep are these holes?
So the first holes are about 125 meters, planned out at 125 meters, but they're quickly stepping
downhole depth or vertical depth? Sorry for
downhole depth. So if we were to look at that as vertical, maybe in 100 meters vertical.
When will you go deeper in the Belleterre mine area?
So we're already progressing well through these drill holes. So we've already stepped into that second line of fences. So these are stepping to about 150 meters of vertical depth. And as we move further off to the east on this, these will get down to the 300 to 400 meter depth fairly quickly in the next few weeks. And then as we step further back, we're then drilling underneath the entire mine system, which is down at about 500 meter depth, and then extending that. And then from that point on, the design of this first phase of drilling at 60,000 meters when we encounter success at the Belleterre mine, we will just be adding on drill meterages as we go. And that might look as it might be a step out even further back to the north and stepping further out into this area, or it might be something where we step in and actually start to infill between some of those drill holes for better understanding of the continuity.
What's the daily advance rate, ballpark?
How much meterage are we getting a day?
Yeah, per rig.
Right now, we're drilling almost 200 meters a day per rig, just because they're shallow drill holes, which is putting a lot of stress on our geologists. But that most likely will come down to about 100 meters a day. When we look at that average.
That's actually quite a lot.
It's quite a lot. I was chatting with our geologist this morning, and yeah, we're seeing lots of core on the table. It's great. It's good, competent rock. The RQD is fantastic. So that it's not fractured, it's not broken. Drills they're more or less brand new drills. We've got drillers with great experience. So we've had we're having some great success here with the drill rates as we go.
If you stay on the Belleterre mine trend, is all mineralization hosted in shears or some intrusion related?
Most of the gold is in shears.
Or the veins are in shears, yes.
Yeah. Well, and in this location, they're somewhat synonymous because the shearing is parallel to a lot of the vein systems, but there are some cross-cutting veins that do carry some of the mineralization. So yes, it's mostly in quartz veins at this point. As we look at the Obel deposit, this is where we see the dynamics of mineralization change, and we see actually more of at depth. We see more of an alteration hosted mineralization. So we see
what kind of alteration?
So we look into sericite alteration within the sericite, chlorite silicification within the quartz feldspar porphyries and the mafic volcanic.
Are you seeing copper, or do you expect to see copper and other base metals there then?
No, we don't. They vary. We see a little bit of calco and a little bit Obel. We get a little bit into a small amount of zinc. We do see silver in both, a little bit in Belleterre and a little bit more in Obel. But both are a very clean gold system. There's not a lot of other sulfide. There's not a lot of sulfides that come into the mix. They're still there. There's pyrite and chalcopyrite, but not in significant amounts. As we move into the southwestern area where we have the VMS, we start to see a little bit more growth in the sulfide mineralization as well. So I think the next slide I have here cuts through the Belleterre mine and looks at a little bit of the geometry that we have within the Belleterre system itself. So this in the background, we can see the mine workings. This is an infinite view looking to the west. So we're looking at all of the stoped out areas in the past, which are in the red in the back, and our interpretation on top of that. So what we're anticipating to see, and it's lining up quite nicely with our drilling currently underway, is that we have the 12 vein plunging off to the north with a schistosity that's parallel to these fold hinges. And these fold hinges that we see, say this one here, acting as high-grade chutes, where, as I mentioned before, in the past these have been modeled as plunging west, or in this situation, into the sheet. We're actually seeing now that these are plunging east, which would be coming towards us. And if we look at our inset map down here, this would be the anticipated plunge line of these high-grade chutes. So these hinges here, these tend to, they're yes on this sheet vein that's plunging off to the north, but there's a dip to those, and it's down to the east, so towards us in here. So we're following our drill holes from surface down here and tracing that high-grade hinge as we move further to the east. So it was of the historic mine. Yes, this was the main target of the mine. There was a few sub veins that come off of it as well that are all numbered, but the 12 was the big producer. What we are seeing with the 12 is that one, it looks like it has a continuity further to the north, and so our process here is multiple fold. One is to look at the envelope around the historic workings and look for the mineralization above and below below the 12 or associated with one of these other numbered veins. Two is to look at the delineation of this high-grade system, which plunges off to the east. And as we see from the extraction of the stope details, we've got a big opening of where it appears that the high-grade chute may not have actually been exploited. And so as we come down and we trace that from surface down, this gives us the ability for looking at the extension of mineralization through this untested region. And then a third is the following of this sheet-like vein coming down to the north. So as we step further, we'll see that these lines, we could intersect the veins down at further depth. And with this style of mineralization, potentially intersect more of these high-grade chutes. So we've already identified one high-grade chute through the historic, which we're working on. The drilling is now looking at that. We suspect another high-grade chute through the data just to the further to the east. So that's going to be followed up on some of these drill holes.
Okay, but in other words, so vein 12 is not necessarily the main vein, as you have not drilled deep enough to know.
It's sort of our anchor of exploration. And one of the things that's nice about a drill hole is if you can have multiple targets within one drill hole, that's always a great opportunity. So the 12 vein is what we've kind of sits at the core of what we're looking at, but we anticipate being able to intersect a few other systems or maybe a stacking of vein systems either above or below the 12 vein in a single drill hole.
Are you seeing any silver here?
There is silver. I can't remember how many ounces were pearled out, but there is silver in this system. I don't think it's not an indicator for us at this point necessarily, but yes, we do return silver value.
So in other words, right now when you're drilling, what are you targeting now?
So right now our 100. So this is a 500 meter line right here. So 500 meters depth from surface. So we're sitting in this area right through here and stepping out back to drilling into this area right about now as we're coming down. So again, one of the things with the project is it can be difficult in the presentations is the scale. We're zoomed in quite a bit on here, but we're looking at a full mine system right now. So this is an 800 meter strike length of the 12 vein from the 1 shaft to the 3 shaft. So these are large systems. So as we move further back, our step outs at 100 meters, 120 meters. We still have lots of infill to do as we explore, but we are trying to cover as much ground to get into to sort of build the biggest and most exciting story that we can have at this time, and test as many of these targets we've been able to hone and understand through the past years of compilation. So I think my next slide here is it's an oblique angle. It's similar to the cross section, but it kind of gives an idea of the distribution of the vein systems and again our drilling locations. So the Belleterre mine is off to the left hand side on the east. Now we're looking to the southeast would be looking this way. We've got our compass down here and a 1 kilometer cut through the geology. So this being surface on the upper portion and this being 100 meters below. This is all from our compiled and digitized 3D model that we've put together of the district. So we have off on the east, we've got the Belleterre, which is going to be followed up with a significant amount of drill holes. An intermediate zone here, which is we've got some high-grade gold at surface, a few historic drill intersects, which have never been followed up, but with our interpretation of the geology through here, we've been able to sort of map some fault systems, some smaller fault systems that are running through here, which could be driving that distribution of gold into this area. And then off into the west end, we've got the Obel, which we're drilling off from both the north and the south side of that system, with these drill holes going much deeper. So at this point, because of the scale and the style of mineralization at the Obel system, we're actually drilling holes in upwards of 1,000 meters underneath the system, looking for connections between Obel, Conway, and Packing. This area has seen very little exploration in between these known systems, and we're seeing them now as a potentially not necessarily contiguous system, but a series of stacked repeating systems.
Are all these conceptual underground targets or underground mine targets?
Conceptually, yeah, it is hard to say during the exploration time what extraction means you're going to be looking at this point. Historically, it's always been looked as a high grade system. It still is a high grade system, and so it looks as if it could be underground. But again, it's unclear at this point in time as to how the extraction could be. Each one of these entities, each one of these areas is an exciting drill program on its own. We just get to do them all kind of together. And something about Quebec that's really nice is it's a very robust exploration culture. We have the ability to bring in consultants and ramp up very quickly. Being less than 100 kilometers south of the Abitibi, we have access to all the best infrastructure, equipment, personnel in this industry that you could ever want. Our assay labs are located up there, so it really gives us a very flexible ability to explore this entire district in a bit of a shorter time period. In that mentality, more of your larger explorers.
The hinges, that's the best trap for gold mineralization in these veins.
The hinges, yeah, they tend to be when you get vein systems like this, and it doesn't necessarily need to be veins. It can be more shearing as well. But whenever you introduce a ductile, so when you get into those areas where you have both brittle and ductile happening, and maybe it transitions. It started as brittle and then it went ductile, and that could be some type of change in the pressure, the heat of the area back when this was all forming. Those are the most exciting areas for gold, and the most likely for gold to actually start to deposit in those areas, because that's where you create traps. That's where you create places. So whether it's a change in a pressure that allows mineralizing fluids to kind of slow down and sit for a while, or maybe it's a change in you've gone and you've taken one type of rock and you've put it against a different type of rock, and that the change in geochemistry between one rock and another might trigger the deposition of gold or the precipitation of gold in those areas. So yeah, complexity, hinges, folds, breaks, those are the things that really make exciting targets to drill.
And do you expect the mineralization to be nuggety?
There is a definite consistency of mineralization across the Belleterre 12 vein. When you get vein systems, yes, there's going to be that you do get sort of patches where the gold is not distributed through that equally through these gold veins. So we're bound to have some form of that, but that's in high grade gold system that tends to be the situation. So as we look at Obel and some of our other targets, though, we do get into an area where we might be seeing more of these homogeneous systems that are lower grade but larger intervals.
So then after Belleterre gold mine, where are you going next?
The first push of drilling right now will take place within the brownfield area, and so we're looking at continuing our drilling at the surface, the near shallow at Belleterre, and then our next target is going to be, while we're still continuing to drill at Belleterre, is to move a rig over to the Obel system and start drilling this out. This will be a slower process just because of its depth. But as we move in through this and start drilling off here, we'll most likely move one of our drills off into the intermediate zone and then a few of the areas here down to the south still within the Belleterre mine trend. And at that point, once we get into the winter seasons, we'll be looking at, if I can just I'll step back to our overview slide here. We will be looking at our regional targets. So getting out into our regional targets in through the winter months of 2024-25.
What's the split between the Belleterre mine trend and the regional?
75% of the drilling goes into the Belleterre mine trend.
Okay, so roughly what, 15,000 meters?
Yeah, 46,000 meters will go into the Belleterre mine trend.
Thank you. Okay, we can continue the presentation.
Yeah, so I'll jump back down again. This is a good place to kind of look at what's happening in that timeline. So again, as I mentioned, we've got these targets outside of the Belleterre mine trend that are really exciting. And those do incorporate a few of the other commodities. So the Brevard Savard, which sits here, this is a VMS, this is a higher, this brings in zinc. mineralization, some copper and gold still. Over on our Myelinite system on the far west side of this is where we see high grade, 18 grams per ton gold, 390 grams per ton silver, 20 grams per ton gold. These are grab samples from 2021-22. And so this is what warrants, and this is what's created our drill targets in these areas. It's my understanding, my approach is that every good target deserves some drill holes. That's really the only way you're ever going to figure it out. You can continue to poke around there, but at some point you need to get a drill rig to go underground and actually look to see what we have there. As it stands right now, I've proposed 3 drill holes in this sequence here. It's a large Myelinite system that's about 600 meters wide, 500 to 600 meters wide, with an incredible extent to the north. It's not clear as to what mineralization potential there is all the way through, but we do have some gold on the far side of this lake over here as well. So this system here we'll test with these first 3 holes, and if they come back successful, they'll be able to add to that as we move along. And we also have, again, our high grade gold vein system through here, 30 grams per ton, 25 grams per ton through here, which is a surface along a folded folded vein system. It's referred to as the Guye mine vein. There was no mine there. It was the name of the company at the time, but this is taking some follow up through this area as well. These 2 systems are also in line with these major conduit faults, which we've been able to map through the geophysics. So these splays may be splays coming off of the major corridor, which we see kind of cutting up through here. And so that might be what's causing the connection and the distribution of the gold system. Closer to that corridor, we've got the Lac aux Sables East horizon. This is an ultramafic horizon and a complexly folded ultramafic where we've seen gold, nickel, and cobalt anomalies down in this area as well, which once again add to the complexity and the fertility of the district. Often in the best locations to explore, you're not just looking at a single commodity, and also due to the scale, this window here from corner to corner is about 12 kilometers across, and it provides us with a lot of targets and a lot of exciting regions. And as mentioned, those targets are standalone drill targets for any junior company, independently within the mine trend, but throughout the brownfield, these are also great targets of their own for a junior for us to be able to explore within this area.
Do you view any of these regional targets as more attractive than the others?
Attractiveness, I don't like to pick favorites for sure, but I'm very interested in seeing the continuity within the VMS here. The geophysics we've been able to encompass or to interpret through this area, it's a very interesting environment, both with the geophysical geometry that we see, the fault systems, the structures, plus the change in the geochemical signature of these rocks. It's potentially a completely different domain, so a totally different geological setting than what we see up to the north, but something after the formation of it has really kind of brought in a lot of mineralization into the area. So this one's going to be exciting to see the extent that we might have within that mineralization. And then also just along the corridor itself, we've had high grade gold hits, 175 grams per ton, 25 grams per ton within here on grab samples. And this area has never been tested for mineralization. Very, very few drill holes have gone through here as well. It's hard to pick a favorite with so many good options. Honestly, it's not a problem. I'm angry to have though. And if I can jump to that last slide here, where we get into that more regional, what comes next after the drill program type questions. Outside of the brownfield area, we've already identified 3 Belleterre analog regions of similar scale, and they have a really similar signature to that of the Belleterre mine. The issue, and one of the reasons why they've seen limited exploration, is that off on the east end of the Belleterre Greenstone belt, we have a much thicker overburden. So after the glaciers had left, they've left a lot more cover over here, so it's a lot more disguised. Thankfully, our geophysics are capable of seeing through that. And we've also completed till surveys in the past, which give us some insight into the underlying geology below the overburden. And we've identified some gold anomalies associated with some of these regional faults that are similar to that of the Belleterre mine, in a demonstrating a similar signature of the Belleterre mine itself. And one of them actually here kind of continues along that trend. And so those are exciting targets for us. These are going to require more field work before they become drill targets, but we do look forward to transitioning those into drill targets as we move forward. And then off into the directly north, this gets into a felsic intrusive. This is the Devlin Pluton that sits through here, and this area also has some gold signature in till. And we've been able to, we're still in the process of identifying the source of that gold anomaly in this area. But this, if it comes back as we hope, this could be indicative of something which would be more of a bulk tonnage, lower grade type mineralization that you see in these felsic intrusive environments.
Do you have any of these? Do you have any drill ready target in these areas, or if not, what work is needed to get some drill ready targets?
So, in order for us to transition these to drill ready targets, we'd want to go and do potentially. Well, first of all, we would do a really focused prospecting, and get in and see if we can find any more outcrop that we hadn't previously been able to identify on our first pass. Second would be, if we can't, would be going into a more detailed geophysics. We could go with a more tightly spaced magnetics, but I don't think that's necessary. There's a few options that other geophysical providers have that give us an IP potential signature, which has been shown to beneficial within these gold systems. IPs tend to usually want a higher level of sulfides to really identify the whatever anomaly you might be looking for. But there's a few of the providers we've been talking to have been able to hone their abilities on the orogenic gold and IP surveys in these locations. So we're looking into that as at this time. And then following from that, if we can identify more targets, we do a quick stripping program if we're able to get through the overburden. But honestly, if we're sitting at high overburden, we might look at potentials. There could be an RC program, which would get through the overburden and test the first the upper portion of the bedrock, and then follow that with the drill program. I would think, within a year and a half, we would be able to have some good, strong targets out in our Greenfield area, but we'd also be adding targets within the Brownfield area.
So if your thesis for the Belleterre mine trend, i.e. the Brownfield area, plays out, what could be the size of the prize?
That's the favorite question. And again, as on the exploration side, it's a hard one to answer. It's tough. There's a lot of gold here on surface. This entire window that we're seeing, really within the Greenfield that we see, within the Greenstone that we see in the background here, is filled with high grade gold systems. And we know for a fact that we really haven't tested this at depth. So the potential for reproducing what was produced at Belleterre Gold Mine historically is a very likely outcome. So that's the 800,000 ounces. That being said, with the potential depth and continuity of these systems, it could step up multiple fold of that relatively quickly in these areas. I know in speaking, again, I tend to be a little bit reserved in my resource estimates based at this stage of the game. But again, the possibility of multi-million ounces, I think, is very strong within an area like this, with the amount of gold that there is.
Perfect. But so then, when looking at your assays and also your what does success look like?
Yeah. So again, looking at what some of the intervals that we see, and I think what I would think is quite possible for us in this area is the sort of 10 meters of sort of 12 grams per ton would be something we'd be really happy with seeing at the beginning, drilling in and around the Belleterre mine. some of these high grade systems that were mined in the Belleterre historic mine site were certainly higher than that. And so if we can start building that extension and get the multiple meters, 10 meters plus, 10 grams plus is really what we're kind of looking for.
What would you like to see at one of your prospects for you to add a rig? Have 2 or 3 rigs going on it?
Well, to be honest, we're not far off from that already, being able to make that kind of jump. And again, it comes down to one of the things is the scale we're at as a company. I don't want to inundate our workforce too quickly with too many drill rigs, because a lot of those drill rigs, it's not delineation, it's not just sort of ore waste type production drilling. This is detailed drilling. We're capturing a lot of information. All of our drilling that we're doing is oriented drilling, so it gives us a lot of insight and detail into the geometry of these systems. But yeah, I think if they take for example the Belleterre 9, if we 2 drill holes, actually this I believe is 3 drill holes from 2 collars or 2 pads. If we intersect what we see, then maybe an extension of that vein plunging off to the north, something similar to what we have over at Belleterre, we could very quickly be adding drills to that. And I know our partners and our investors would like to see a speed that increases on this and a rate of drilling. But again, I would like to do this in the most thorough and systematic way. I don't want to jump ahead and just start throwing drills on targets that are not necessarily ready, and then it doesn't allow us to understand the work that we're doing elsewhere. But the ability to go to multiple, we're currently sitting at 2, going to 3, 4 drills is something that is quite potential to happen over the next several months.
And then, so in your regional program, or so how many holes will you poke in each target approximately, so before moving on, and also potentially discarding any targets?
If I had to have a rule of thumb, I'd say it's 3 holes. 3 holes can give you enough information. If you're going off of a single sort of grab or an outcrop that you wanted to test and you wanted to see, let's say you've got the outcrop, the geophysics, and that you've identified that on your 2D surface at ground level, 3 holes is going to be enough to tell you if it's time to move on or not.
If you could explain the geologic properties of Skyfall.
Yeah, so Skyfall, it's another interesting district scale prospect property. Interestingly, the Skyfall project and the Belleterre project, even though they're on latitude very much separated, they're very close to a geological contact, an important geological contact known as the Greenfield front. And it's where the Precambrian rocks of the Greenfield, which is what sort of southern Ontario and much of southern Quebec sit within. It's where it butts up right against the Archean rocks of the Canadian Shield. Well, both are considered the Canadian Shield, but they're close to that boundary. One of the things that happens in those areas at the Greenfield is the geology gets complicated. That Greenfield area has been really mixed up, high grade metamorphism. Things get just churned around quite a bit, and it becomes really difficult to interpret that geology. And in some ways, it's scared off a lot of exploration close to that boundary. And actually, the Greenfield front was mapped to go right through the southern portion of Skyfall, and whereas in Belleterre, it's about 5 kilometers south of the Belleterre system. But they're both geologically in the same kind of Archean areas. The Skyfall claims were mostly looked at as a volcanic sequence, and a portion of it was part of this Greenfield area. When we got up onto the site, and part of our due diligence in looking at this, one of our sort of head academic geologists identified this area as the potential of having large-scale komatiites, which are an ultramafic rock that used to flow like lava back in the Archean times, when the Earth was much hotter, and they don't tend to flow. We don't see them formed much anymore. But those are the types of mineralization that bring in nickel deposits, cobalt deposits, stuff like that. And so In the past, it was looked at as mostly a gold target, and then we saw the potential of this with the ultramafic sequence to bring in some more base metal potential. And so through our first rounds of exploration in 2022-23, we were able to identify the komatiite sequence. We did a high resolution EM survey, which gave us both magnetics and electromagnetism conductivity. And we were able to identify many conductor targets, which then focused our exploration over the next few seasons to look at these targets. And we've been able to identify some of the targets are inevitably going to come back as a graphite, but some of our targets came back as these ultramafics or massive sulfide lenses. And so we've continued that exploration and the field work over this past summer and done some stripping, looking at some of the mineralization potential. And what we've actually expanded is as this region started as a gold project, transitioned to mostly a nickel project, and has now actually encompassed nickel, cobalt, copper, zinc, and gold. So it's another district scale, high optionality exploration program that we are the operators. As I mentioned before, we utilize a lot of consultants within Quebec. There's a lot of really high quality consultants that we could pull from for our geological teams. But again, we're doing this under the option agreement with SOQUEM, which was signed in 2023.
What are the next steps for Skyfall?
Next steps is we're doing our final compilations of the work that was done this summer, and we're looking at the possibility of transitioning a few of our best targets into drill targets. Timeline I can't say at this point, but we're hoping to be able to transition these to drill targets as soon as we can.
We can move to Foothills now.
Foothills is located along the St. Lawrence Seaway, northeast of Quebec City. It's situated near the port town of Saint-Aubin, and it is a large anorthosite intrusive body with a halo around the margin with high phosphate concentration and as well as titanium mineralization, which is coming from a rutile bearing massive ilmenite. So this has been optioned off with Neo Bay, who has spent the past summer doing a great job on exploration field work and has actually identified and extended the titanium targets within the area. If I just step down to the next one, so they've added some titanium showing to the south over here, and a few more into to this area here. So this is they're moving the project forward for us, and they're transitioning these into drill targets. As for the timeline, I'm not sure exactly when that is coming up, but they will be following up both the phosphate and the titanium targets in the near future.
So, from an explorationist point of view, where do you envision Vior in a year from now?
Well, I think we're really in a transition phase right now with the Belleterre project. This is a big opportunity for a junior explorer, and I think we are poised to take a really big push at this. We've started to instead of using the consultants, bringing in our own team here for the geologists. And so I think we've got several years of work to do at Belleterre. And I think with this scale of work and the ability for us to build our team around a project like this, we'll just be looking for the next sort of scale project, something on a district scale. So I would think with whatever happens with Belleterre, if we were to develop whatever potential deposit there could be there, we would. We're not looking to be producers, as most juniors are not. So we would be looking for our next major project to work on.
So then, drilling. You have now started 2 rigs. However, drilling was delayed by a couple of months. Why was it delayed, and how did you resolve it?
Yeah, so we were fully permitted very early July, ready to go, but we were still conducting some consultation, ongoing discussions on a variety of topics with our First Nation partner, which is Long Point First Nations, who have their community of Winnoway about 20-25 kilometers from our project, from the town of Belleterre. We wanted to resolve all of these issues before we began drilling. It's really important to have good relation, good collaboration with your First Nation partners in the area. We believe that was more important for the long-term benefit of the project. And we finally resolved any of the outstanding issues and discussion points several weeks ago and began drilling with their full written support.
Super. And how are your relations now with firstly the local communities and also the First Nation of Long Point?
Yeah, so in terms of the Belleterre community, excellent relations. We have an office in town. We talk to the mayor and the council members on a very regular basis. We employ people from the town right now during this drill program. In terms of the First Nation community, relations have really improved here. We will have a number of them on staff. They are currently working on a partnership with a number of drill companies that they like to partner with to set up their own First Nations drilling company. We've supported them on this. We'll have some ongoing discussions with them over the next month to further that initiative as well. But no, it's they see the potential benefit should we have success, and they understand the benefits that could accrue to their community.
What's the assaying time approximately?
Yeah, so we're budgeting right now 6 to 8 weeks turnaround. From the time we drill a number of holes, a batch of holes, call it 7 to 10 holes at a time is what we're sort of targeting releasing. Could be quicker than that, but that's what we're allowing for the time being. By the time we cut the core, bring it up to the lab in Val d'Or, receive the results, interpret them, and put together a press release.
So what cadence do you expect in your sort of press assay results?
We hope to have regular news flow every 6 to 8 weeks or thereabouts. There'll be we can drill year round. There'll be some minor interruptions here or there. Like, for example, hunting season begins in earnest in Quebec at the end of next week. So there'll be a 2-week period where we'll still be able to drill, maybe not as efficiently as we're doing at the moment, but there'll be a 2-week window there where we'll have to adapt a little bit. And then obviously the only other time would be during the Christmas holidays. There'll be, probably 10 to 14 days of downtime for everyone as well. But we foresee, regular 6 to 8 week news flow or thereabouts, beginning sometime, I would say, mid-November to late November. I don't want to put an exact time frame on it, but as it could be sooner than that as well.
How many rigs do you have, drilling rigs, do you have access to?
Sure. So at the moment, we have 2 rigs drilling 24/7. There's a good probability that we will add a 3rd rig sometime in November, just due to geographic locations of various drill targets. We do have access, should we have early success over the next couple of months, and we want to ramp up our drilling activities, we do have access to additional rigs if needed.
Quebec, how is Quebec as a mining jurisdiction?
Yeah, well, based on the Fraser Institute survey, we're one of the top ranked jurisdictions. I would say, having worked there for the past 7 years, it really is, an excellent jurisdiction, but it's far from perfect, like any jurisdiction. Every jurisdiction has some challenges. Quebec is no different, but from everyone, I've been working with over the past 7 years, clearly we can get things done in Quebec. As you're aware, there's a new permitting process that was recently implemented by the Ministry of Natural Resources. It takes a little bit longer to receive your permits in Quebec, but the turnaround time should be, for the most part, in the vicinity of about 8 weeks or thereabouts. One of the reasons for the longer time frame involved is the requirement for consultation with all stakeholders. Unlike previously, we need some type of written acknowledgement that we have undertaken proper consultation with the community, with other local stakeholders, and in particular, whichever First Nation partners are in your area as well.
But then, so could you have a partnership with SOQUEM on Skyfall, where you own 50% and they own 50%, if I recall correctly? Skyfall is a nickel and gold project. Could you explain that partnership?
Yeah, so the partnership came about a year and a half ago. So we were looking for a partner to advance this potential nickel project at the time. We had identified a significant ultramafic sequence on the project that had never been recognized before. We had spoken to a few majors, big nickel majors, global entities. They're a little slow moving, and they wanted to see the project advanced a little further before they became involved. So, but SOQUEM was a very willing partner. They liked the project. So we struck a deal with them. They would spend $2.5 million over 2 years and advance us certain cash payments for their 50% interest. And we are near the tail end of that 2-year period. They should be fully spent on their $2.5 million by early next year, at which point we would form a 50-50 joint venture partnership.
As was shown in the presentation, you have quite a few other projects. Could you give us an overview of the other projects, especially the more important projects, and outline the next steps for them?
So the other two, I would say, partnered projects would be our Foothills phosphate titanium project that we have optioned to NeoBay Metals in Quebec. They are actually beginning a drill program on the project at the end of this month. They've just received their permitting, but due to hunting season, it's a bit of a religion in Quebec. They'll have to wait till the end of the month before they begin their drilling program. But they're pretty excited. This is a very promising phosphate titanium project. Their people have a lot of expertise in that area. Their CEO, Jean-Sébastien David, worked with a major phosphate company. He knows the ecosystem in that space very well, all the major global players. So we're pretty excited to have them as a partner here. They are the operator. I think we struck a win-win option agreement with them. So that's going on as we speak. Our Muscle Gold project, which we optioned to harvest gold from Vancouver, they've just raised some money. They are undertaking some field work this fall in preparation for a drill program first half of next year. But this is a 17-kilometer long gold-bearing structure. As you're aware, we cannot be all things to all people. We don't have the capability to advance all of our projects at the same time. But I think here's another win-win example where they are the operator. We receive skin in the game if there's upside on that project. We do have two other gold projects on the shelf. We're sort of upgrading one of the projects, our Ligneris Gold project. This is a project that's been in our portfolio since 1984. It does have economic intercepts from the past. As an example, there was a 13.5 grams per ton over 10.6 meters. 62 grams per ton over 2.9 meters. This project will garner attention during this bull market in gold, and we fully expect to find a partner for it, or potentially sell it outright. The kind of partner it requires is probably a producer or an advanced explorer with some deep pockets, as it will require a lot of deep drilling.
Should we expect any news from any of your other projects besides Belleterre, of course, in this year?
Yeah, I would expect the phosphate titanium project to have results towards the end of this year on their drilling program. And with respect to harvest gold, it'd be more field activity results, maybe late this year, early next year. But aside from that, it would be pretty limited towards the end of the year. And our Skyfall project, probably some field work results towards the end of this year, early next year.
But then, as you said, you have positions primarily in Ridgeline Minerals, worth 500,000 Canadian, I think, and then you have some other smaller positions, Neo Bay and Harvest Gold. What's your plan for your shareholding in these companies going forward?
So, with respect to Ridgeline, we see it as a future, significant position for our treasury. We like what's going on with the company. We know management. We talk to them regularly. So we sort of tucked that away for the time being. Our holdings in Neo Bay and in Harvest Gold, we're long-term partners as much as we can be there. We'll give them time to execute on their various programs, and we'll evaluate our shareholdings in them on a quarter-by-quarter basis. But there's no immediate plans for any divestiture, certainly. As you're aware, with the Lassonde curve, money and biggest gains are made during the discovery exploration phase of any junior explorers. So we're going to wait and give them time to execute, drill, and hopefully have some excellent results.
Osisko Mining, your largest shareholder, holds 22%. That's what's or direct ownership. What was their rationale for investing in you?
Well, they've increased their position since day one. So their initial position began in March 2021. They participated in a significant financing that we undertook. At that time, I believe they went to just over 10% at the time. And they've gradually increased their position through several financings that we undertook in 2022 and 2023. And most recently, this large financing, they believed last fall that we were ready to undertake a significant drill program at Belleterre Gold. They wanted a good piece of it. They were willing to help us secure that large financing. And so right now they're at 22.3% undiluted and about 28.3% partially diluted. Obviously, with the takeover of Osisko Mining by Goldfields, Goldfields will now be the significant shareholder in Vior. We've been told by senior Osisko Mining management that it should be business as usual. As you're probably aware, part of Goldfields' sort of a long-term plan is for Quebec to become an anchor in their diversification strategy. People may or may not be aware, but Goldfields did attempt to take over Yamana several years ago to gain a foothold in Quebec and a piece of the Canadian Malartic mine. So this should be of no surprise that they're now going to be 100% owners of the Windfall project in Quebec, and that will become a mine in the next couple of years, producing mine. I'm sure they'd like nothing more than to have a second mine in Quebec at some future point. So I would see their Vior holdings as being integral in terms of a future Quebec pipeline for them.
Great, that's good to have them on board. But then, so if we speak about the current 60,000 meter plus drill program, I see three main permutations for you. So the first one is the best one, of course. That is that you make one or more true discoveries during the season. Mid-season, you hit something, you hit several, you hit 10 grams, 10 gram plus per ton of gold over meaningful intercepts. So your cost of capital re-rates significantly. Your share price at least doubles from where it sits around 19 cent in the middle of the season. And the second one, and that is of course the best scenario. Then the permutation 2 is that you have solid exploration success, and the potential for a multi-million ounce district is definitely still there, but you have not hit any, I don't know, crazy or remarkable intercepts that immediately gets the share price to double, but it's still definitely higher than this today. So, and then the third permutation is that you have some decent intercepts in the brownfield and also the regional areas, but the potential for a multi-million ounce district is not there. But you have some prospects that definitely warrant further testing. So in that case, your cost of capital is more or less the same, maybe more or less the same. So then that was a long description, but could you walk us through each permutation and how you'll be thinking in terms of raising and deploying capital over in each in those permutations?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've illuminated us on 3 possible permutations. I'm sure there's many more than that, but in terms of I'd say permutation 1, best case scenario, we have early drilling success. We're able to hit some meaningful grade over meaningful meters, and get the market excited about a significant discovery. I mean, that's what we're all hoping for and we wish for. Is that going to occur in the first few months? I cannot answer that. Mother Nature and the drill results and assays will dictate that. But if we were able to, then obviously we will look to maybe ramp up additional drills sooner than later. We would probably look to raise capital in Q1 of next year, hopefully at more meaningful levels and more attractive levels. That would be the best of all worlds. Permutation scenario 2, where we have sort of some mid-range results, but there's a lot of smoke, and we know there's likely some fire around us. I still think we're going to get a meaningful bump in our share price, with the potential for several ounce potential resource or at some future point. That's still an excellent and most palatable scenario where I think we would just continue to ramp up maybe an extra drill. We would look at a financing sometime Q1 or early Q2 next year. Please bear in mind, we do have warrants outstanding at 21 cents. Those could go in the money sooner than later. But I'm not going to count on those for certain. We do have access to very attractive charitable flow-through money, at some future point at a nice premium. And in the third scenario, where it's mediocre results, I truly believe we're going to hit some meaningful grades. I can't say over how many meters. We know there's gold still there in the stopes. We believe with our new structural model that obviously Ben spent time with you on Monday, that we do have a good probability for success for some meaningful widths and over meaning, with high grade. So let's take it one day at a time here. I know the market, what the market or certain market participants obviously want to see are those juicy high grades of 10 grams plus, let's say, but even 7 grams today is high grade. If we were able to find some of those over meaningful meters. So let's take it one day at a time. But I do like our probability for different positive scenarios. we've always adopted the view under promise, over deliver here. I think we're showing that in the market. We showed that in our financing earlier on this year. I think there are a lot of doubters who didn't believe we had the ability to raise $20 million in a really challenging market. And we proved them wrong. And I think we have the potential to prove a lot of doubters wrong about Belleterre here as well in the next many months.
Besides Osisko and Goldfields, what interest for Belleterre have you seen from larger mining companies?
Yeah, so we've presented over the last few years at different conferences to producers, some of the bigger producers in Quebec and elsewhere. During our financing in March, we did have interest for a certain producer to buy 9.9% of the company through the financing. But we elected not to undertake discussions with them for the simple reason Osisko Mining had given their full support to us in this financing. It would be wrong to go behind their back without their tacit approval to bring in another entity at this point in time. So we reserve the right to, at some future point, to, if somebody else wants to invest a piece into Vior, clearly we have that potential. Should we have a nice discovery? But over the past year or so, that wasn't in the cards, given Osisko Mining's support, both financial and technical, with us.
My ultimate question is then, where do you envision Vior in 3 years?
Well, our objective is to make a significant discovery here at Belleterre over the next 12 to 24 months. Over the next 3 years, I would envisage seeing Vior bought or Belleterre Gold bought, or we become part of a much larger, more diversified, advanced explorer entity in that time frame. So I would see one of those two eventualities over that time frame.